The second my daughter opened the door, I knew I'd made a mistake. Her eyes didn't light up. They narrowed. Mom. Not hi, Mom, or come in, Mom. Just, Mom. Like my name was a problem she hadn't expected to deal with today. I stood there in her marble foyer, and God, it was marble, the kind that echoes when you breathe, holding a grocery store cake in a clear plastic container, vanilla with pink buttercream roses. The kind she used to beg for when she was 7, the kind we'd eat straight from the box with our fingers while watching cartoons on our lumpy couch. But that little girl was gone. The woman in front of me wore a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my rent. Her hair was blown out in those perfect waves rich women get at salons with names like Atelier or The Sanctuary. Behind her, I could see them, her friends, all glass stems and pearls, their laughter like wind chimes in a house that was too big to ever feel warm. I brought cake, I said, lifting the container like an idiot. For your birthday. Vanessa's jaw tightened. She glanced over her shoulder, just a flick of her eyes, and I saw it. The calculation, the shame. Mom, you can't just show up like this. You invited me. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. You texted me the address. I thought you'd... She trailed off, her gaze sliding down my body like I was something sticky she'd stepped in. My Walmart cardigan, my cotton blend slacks from the clearance rack, my sensible shoes. Not her level. That's what her face said. Vanessa? One of the women called from the living room. Everything okay? Just a minute, Claudia. Vanessa's voice went bright and brittle, the voice she used for people who mattered. Then she turned back to me and lowered her voice to a whisper. Mom, you'll never reach my level. Stop embarrassing yourself. The words hit me like a slap. Not because they were loud, because they weren't. She'd said them quietly, carefully, like she was letting me in on a secret. Behind her, the champagne women giggled, their voices tinkling like the crystal they held. I wondered if they'd heard. I wondered if that was the point. I just wanted to... I know what you wanted. Vanessa's hand was already on the door, closing the space between us. But this isn't... I have important people here. Investors. You don't understand how this looks. My throat burned. I understood exactly how it looked. I looked down at the cake. The stupid, cheap grocery store cake with its garish pink roses and happy birthday scrawled in blue icing. I'd spent 20 minutes in the bakery aisle trying to pick the prettiest one. I'm your mother, I said. I know. Her voice softened, just a fraction. Pity, maybe, or guilt. And I love you, but you need to go. She didn't take the cake. I stood there, holding it like a fool, while my daughter closed the door in my face. The elevator ride down felt like drowning. 62 floors of polished mirrors and soft jazz, and all I could see was my reflection. A 58-year-old woman in a cardigan, clutching a grocery store cake, trying not to cry. You'll never reach my level. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass and let the tears come. 27 years. I'd raised her alone after her father died, worked double shifts at the library, sent her to college on loans I was still paying off, watched her climb and climb and climb until I couldn't see her anymore. And now, she couldn't even let me through the door. The elevator dinged. Lobby. I wiped my face with the back of my hand, straightened my shoulders, and stepped out into the gleaming atrium with its fountain and its doorman who looked through me like I was glass. Outside, the city air hit me cold and sharp. I set the cake on a bench, some stranger would find it, maybe enjoy it, and pulled my coat tighter. Then I thought about the papers. The ones I'd signed that morning. The lawyer's office had been small, cramped, the kind of place that smelled like old coffee and older books. I'd sat across from a man with wire-rimmed glasses and a kind face, and he'd slid a stack of documents across the desk. Your late husband was more than a factory supervisor, he'd said gently. He filed patents, manufacturing processes, automation systems. They've been generating revenue for 20 years, Mrs. Chen. You're the sole beneficiary. I'd stared at the numbers until they blurred. $7.3 million. I don't understand, I'd whispered. Why didn't he tell me? He wanted to. but he passed before the first major contract came through. The money's been sitting in trust, waiting for you to claim it. My hands had shaken as I signed. Not because of the money, but because of what it meant. All those years, I'd thought we were poor, struggling, barely scraping by. And my husband, my beautiful, brilliant husband, had been building something in the shadows, something that would catch me when I fell. He'd just died too soon to see it. I walked to my car, a 14-year-old Honda, with a dent in the passenger door, and sat in the driver's seat, staring at nothing. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. Sorry if that was awkward. You understand, right? Love you. I didn't reply. I started the engine, my hands still trembling. You'll never reach my level. I thought about the papers in my purse, the bank account that now had more zeros than I could process, the lawyer who'd told me, take your time, decide what you want to do, you have options now. Options. I almost laughed. I glanced up at the building, all glass and steel and money, and wondered which window was hers. Then I pulled out of the parking lot and drove away. Behind me, I didn't see him. But in the rearview mirror, just for a second, I caught a glimpse of a man standing in the lobby. Tall, dark suit. Vanessa's husband. Derek. He was staring after my car, his face unreadable. And then he mouthed one word. Wait. But I was already gone. And the clock on everything my daughter knew had just started ticking. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table, the same scratched Formica table where my husband used to sketch his ideas on napkins, and stared at the folder. The one the lawyer had given me that morning. The one that changed everything. My hands shook as I opened it again, even though I'd read every page 3 times already. Patent certificates, revenue statements, bank account numbers with commas that made my eyes water. $7.3 million. From a man who used to wear the same work boots for 5 years because they still had life in them. 20 years ago. I could still see him at this table. 2 a.m. A cup of cold coffee at his elbow, sketching mechanical diagrams on whatever paper he could find. Napkins, grocery receipts, the margins of the newspaper. What are you working on? I'd asked, shuffling into the kitchen in my bathrobe, pregnant with Vanessa and exhausted. Just an idea, he'd said, grinning up at me. Something that'll make the line run smoother, faster. Will they pay you for it? He'd shrugged. Maybe. Doesn't matter. I just like solving problems. I'd kissed the top of his head and gone back to bed. I never asked again. Now, sitting in the same kitchen, I traced my finger over one of the patent documents. Automated Assembly Calibration System. Inventor, Robert Chen. Filed 2 months before he died. Approved 8 months after. He'd never seen it. Never knew what it would become. But somehow, he'd known to protect me, to put everything in my name, to make sure that when the contract started rolling in long after he was gone, I'd be taken care of. You were always 10 steps ahead, weren't you? I whispered to the empty room. The kitchen didn't answer. I'd gone back to the lawyer's office that afternoon. I had questions, 1,000 of them. Mr. Patterson had been waiting, his desk covered in more papers than I thought existed. Mrs. Chen. He stood when I entered, gesturing to the chair across from him. I'm glad you came back. I don't understand any of this, I said, sitting down. My husband worked in a factory. He fixed machines. He wasn't an inventor? Mr. Patterson smiled gently. He was, quietly. The companies that licensed his patents have made hundreds of millions. You're entitled to a percentage in perpetuity. In perpetuity? Forever. Or until the patents expire, whichever comes first. He slid a document toward me. This is your current balance. The trust has been accumulating for 20 years. I looked at the number. $7,328,445.12. My vision blurred. Why didn't anyone tell me? Your husband set it up so the money would only be released when you were ready to claim it. He didn't want you to feel pressured, or for people to, he paused, choosing his words carefully, treat you differently. I almost laughed. Treat me differently. Like my daughter treated me, like I was an embarrassment, a relic from a life she'd left behind. What do I do now? I asked. Mr. Patterson leaned back in his chair. That's entirely up to you. You could invest, travel, donate, or… He hesitated. You could continue living as you have been. No one needs to know. I thought about Vanessa's face, the way she'd looked at my cardigan, my clearance rack pants. You'll never reach my level. What would you do? I asked. He smiled. I'd take my time, make decisions slowly. Money reveals who people really are, including yourself. I was about to leave when he stopped me. Mrs. Chen, there's one more thing. Something in his tone made me sit back down. He pulled out another folder. This one thinner, newer. 3 years ago, your daughter came to this office. My stomach dropped. What? She was looking for information about your husband's estate. She'd heard through family connections. I assumed that there might be assets, unclaimed funds. And? I couldn't tell her anything. Attorney-client privilege. But she was persistent. He slid a document across the desk. Eventually, she claimed that she needed money for a business investment. She asked to borrow against her father's estate. I stared at the paper. It was a promissory note. Signed by Vanessa. $200,000. She thought there was money, I said slowly. She knew there was money, Mr. Patterson corrected. She just didn't know how much, or that it was entirely yours. My hands started to shake. Did she pay it back? He shook his head. The loan was structured with a 5-year deferment. Payment came due 4 weeks ago. He pointed to a line on the document. She hasn't responded to any of our notices. 4 weeks ago, I repeated. Right around the time she started posting less on social media. Right around the time her smile started looking tighter in photos. What happens if she doesn't pay? Legally, you can demand full repayment, with interest. He folded his hands. Or you can forgive the debt. It's your choice. I looked at the paper. At my daughter's signature, all loops and confidence. She'd borrowed money from her dead father's estate. Money she thought no one was watching. Money she'd probably spent on that penthouse, those designer dresses, that life she'd built to prove she was better than where she came from. Better than me. Does she know I know? Not unless you tell her. I drove home in a fog. My brain couldn't hold it all. The patents, the millions, the loan. The daughter who'd shut the door in my face while owing me $200,000. I parked outside my apartment, a 1-bedroom walk-up with carpet from 1987, and looked up at Vanessa's social media on my phone. Her latest post, a photo of her and her friends at some charity gala, all of them dripping in jewels and self-satisfaction. Caption: grateful for this life. Number blessed, number work hard, play hard. I stared at it until the screen went dark. Then I opened my banking app. The one Mr. Patterson had helped me set up. The balance loaded. $7,328,445.12. I could pay off my building, buy a car that didn't sound like it was coughing up a lung, travel, donate, do anything. Or I could wait. I could watch. I could let my daughter learn what happens when you build your life on borrowed money and borrowed pride. I made my decision in the parking lot, sitting in my dented Honda, staring at my daughter's smiling face on a screen. I wasn't going to tell her. Not yet. Not until she understood what it meant to fall. I locked my phone and went inside. Tomorrow, I'd call Mr. Patterson back. Tomorrow, I'd start making plans. But tonight, I sat at my kitchen table and whispered to the empty room. You protected me, Robert. Now I'm going to protect her, even if she doesn't know she needs it. The kitchen didn't answer. But somewhere, I swear I felt him smile. I started buying her world, piece by piece, and she never noticed. First, I paid off my apartment. Took me one phone call and a wire transfer that made my hands sweat. Then, I bought the building, all 6 units. The landlord who'd raised my rent every year for a decade nearly fell over when I offered cash. You're serious? He'd asked, squinting at me like I'd grown a second head. Dead serious, I said. Done. But that was just practice. The real game started when I hired Grace. Grace Liu wasn't what I expected. I'd imagined some shark in a power suit, all veneers and cold handshakes. Instead, she showed up to our first meeting in jeans and glasses, carrying a coffee that cost more than my grocery bill. "You're sitting on a gold mine," she said, spreading papers across the table at the cafe. "But you're thinking too small." "I just want to be comfortable," I said. "Comfortable?" She laughed, not mean, just surprised. "Mrs. Chen, with your capital and the right strategy, you could own half this neighborhood in 5 years." "I don't want half the neighborhood." "What do you want?" I thought about Vanessa's face, the door closing. "You'll never reach my level." "I want options," I said quietly. Grace smiled. "Then let's give you options." 3 months later. I owned 4 buildings now, including the one where Vanessa liked to brunch. Celestial, it was called. All exposed brick and Edison bulbs and $20 avocado toast. I'd seen her Instagram posts from there 100 times. Her and her friends, laughing over mimosas, complaining about how hard it was to find good help. When Grace told me the owner was selling, I didn't hesitate. "Buy it," I said. "You want to run a restaurant?" "I want to own it. Someone else can run it." So we did. The owner, a tired man named Frank who looked like he hadn't slept in a decade, practically kissed my hand when I offered asking price, no negotiation. "Place is yours," he said, pumping my hand. "Good luck." I didn't need luck. I needed information. I started going there. Not inside, I wasn't ready for that. But I'd park across the street, sit in my Honda with a coffee, and watch. Vanessa came every Saturday, 11 a.m., like clockwork. She'd arrive in an Uber never driven herself, not once, and glide inside wearing sunglasses that cost more than my first car. Her friends would be waiting, the same ones. Claudia with the laugh. Simone with the jewelry. Taylor who never smiled. They'd sit by the window. I'd watch from across the street, invisible. And every week, I'd see the cracks. Week 1. Vanessa ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, a side salad. She used to get the lobster Benedict. "You okay?" Claudia asked, loud enough that I could read her lips through the window. "Just watching my figure," Vanessa said, smiling too bright. Liar. Week 2. She paid with a card. It was declined. I saw her face go red. Saw her fumble for another card. Saw Claudia raise an eyebrow. "Sorry, wrong card," Vanessa said, laughing like it was nothing. But I knew that laugh. That was the laugh you give when you're drowning and pretending you're swimming. Week 3. Taylor didn't show up. Neither did Simone. Just Vanessa and Claudia, and even Claudia kept checking her phone like she had somewhere better to be. Vanessa's smile looked painted on. Week 4. She came alone. Sat by the window with a coffee black, no food, and stared at her phone for 45 minutes. No one called. No one texted. She just sat there, scrolling, pretending she wasn't alone. I watched from my car, my heart doing something complicated. That was my daughter. My little girl. Sitting in a restaurant I owned, drowning in a life she'd built to impress people who didn't care. Grace called me that afternoon. "I found something," she said. We met at her office. She had files, lots of them. "Your son-in-law is in trouble," she said, sliding a folder toward me. I opened it. Bank statements, credit card bills, casino receipts. "Derek has a gambling problem," Grace said. "A bad one. He's been covering losses with business loans, and when those ran out," she pointed to a highlighted section, "he started dipping into your daughter's trust fund." My blood went cold. "What trust fund?" "The one your husband set up for her. Small, maybe $150,000. It was supposed to be untouchable until she turned 40. Grace's face was grim. "Derek found a loophole. He's been draining it for 2 years. "Does she know?" "I doubt it. The statements go to an address he controls." I stared at the numbers. At my husband's handwriting on the original trust documents. He'd wanted to protect her. And this man, this snake she'd married, had stolen it. "How much is left?" Grace winced. "Maybe 12,000. He's bled it dry." I sat in my apartment that night, staring at the walls. Vanessa didn't know. She thought she was fine, thought her life was secure. She had no idea her husband was a thief, that her friends were vultures, that her world was collapsing in slow motion. I could tell her. I should tell her. But something stopped me. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was hurt. Or maybe it was the memory of her voice. "You'll never reach my level, Mom." So I didn't call. I didn't text. I just sat there, in my paid-off apartment, in my building that I owned, and waited. 2 weeks later, Grace sent me a text. "They're defaulting on the penthouse. Eviction notice goes out Monday." I stared at the message. Then I opened my banking app and checked the building ownership records Grace had sent me last month. Vanessa's building. The one with the marble foyer and the 62 floors, and the doorman who looked through me like I was nothing. I'd bought it 6 weeks ago. The previous owner had been desperate to sell some hedge fund that was liquidating assets. I'd offered cash. They'd accepted. Vanessa had no idea. She had no idea her landlord, the person who could evict her or save her, was the woman she'd shut the door on 3 months ago. I typed a message back to Grace. "Let the notice go through. I want to see what she does." I hit send. Then I set my phone down and looked at the picture on my mantel. My husband, smiling in his work clothes, grease on his hands, pride in his eyes. "I'm not doing this to hurt her," I whispered. "I'm doing this so she understands." The photo didn't answer, but I knew what he'd say. Sometimes you have to let people fall before they learn to stand. Monday came. The eviction notice was delivered at 9 a.m. I know because I was parked across the street, watching. I saw the courier hand it to the doorman, saw the doorman take it upstairs. And 20 minutes later, I saw Vanessa. She came stumbling out of the building, still in her pajamas, the notice in her hand. Her face was white. She stood on the sidewalk, reading it over and over, like the words would change. They didn't. People walked past her. The city moved on. And my daughter stood there, alone, holding a piece of paper that said she had 30 days to get out. I gripped my steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. Call me, I thought. Just call me. But she didn't. She just folded the paper, walked back inside, and disappeared. The Instagram posts stopped. That's how I knew it was bad. For 2 years, Vanessa had posted every day. Her outfits, her brunches, her number-blessed life. It was like a highlight reel of everything I wasn't. But after the eviction notice, the posts just stopped. 3 days of silence. Then a week. Then 2. I checked every morning like a masochist, refreshing her profile, waiting for proof she was okay. Nothing. Grace kept me updated. She had sources, people who knew Vanessa's friends. "She's selling things," Grace told me over coffee. "Designer bags, shoes. There's a consignment store in Soho moving her stuff." "How much is she getting?" "Pennies on the dollar. She's desperate." I thought about those bags. The ones she used to pose with, tags still on, making sure the brand name showed. Now she was selling them to pay rent. "What about Derek?" I asked. Grace's face darkened. "Still gambling. He thinks he can win it back." "Can he?" "No." I drove past the penthouse that night. Lights were on. I could see shadows moving behind the curtains. I wondered if they were fighting, if Vanessa had figured out what Derek had done, if she'd confronted him, or if she was still living in the fantasy, thinking this was temporary, thinking someone would save her. My phone buzzed. For a second, one stupid, hopeful second, I thought it was her. It wasn't. It was Grace. "Derek's business partners are pulling out. He's got 2 weeks before it collapses completely." I stared at the message. 2 weeks. Then Vanessa would lose everything. The penthouse, the car service, the life she'd built to prove she was better than me. I could stop it. One phone call, one wire transfer. I could swoop in and save her, play the hero, show her that Mom was there all along. But I didn't. I turned off my phone and went home. 1 week later, I saw Claudia at the grocery store. She didn't see me. People like her never did, but I saw her. She was in the wine aisle, laughing on her phone, dropping bottles into her cart like money was air. Oh my God, "Did you hear about Vanessa?" she said, loud enough for half the store to hear. I froze. "I know, right? Derek's company is bankrupt. Can you imagine?" She laughed, that wind chime laugh I remembered from the penthouse. "I told Simone," I said. "I always knew there was something off about him. You can always tell with new money." New money. Like my daughter was a novelty that had expired. "Are you still friends with her?" the person on the phone must have asked. Claudia paused. "I mean, I feel bad for her, but honestly, it's exhausting. She keeps texting about getting together, and I can't, you know?" She moved on, still talking, still laughing. I stood there, holding a can of soup, shaking. These were Vanessa's friends. The ones she'd chosen over me. The ones she'd shut the door for. And now they were laughing at her downfall like it was entertainment. I went home and did something I hadn't done in months. I called her. It rang 4 times. Then voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Vanessa. Leave a message." Her voice sounded so young, so happy. The beep came. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. What was I supposed to say? "I know you're drowning. I've been watching. I own your building. I could save you, but I'm letting you fall because you hurt me." I hung up. 3 days later, Grace called me at 6 a.m. "They're moving out," she said, "right now." I threw on clothes and drove. When I got there, Derek was loading boxes into a U-Haul. His face was red, sweaty, defeated. Vanessa stood on the sidewalk, arms wrapped around herself, watching. She looked small. I'd never seen her look small before. Her hair wasn't done. No makeup. She wore leggings and an old sweatshirt, the kind she used to swear she'd never be caught dead in. She looked like me. I parked down the street and watched. Derek said something to her. She shook her head. He said something else, angrier this time. She flinched. My hand went to the door handle. But before I could move, Vanessa turned and walked away. Just walked. Down the block, away from Derek, away from the U-Haul, away from the life that was disintegrating in cardboard boxes. Derek didn't follow her. He just kept loading boxes, muttering to himself. And I sat there, watching my daughter disappear around the corner, wondering if she'd finally hit bottom. Wondering if I'd let her fall too far. That night, Grace sent me another file. Subject: Derek, legal issues. I opened it. Fraud charges. Forgery. He'd tried to take out loans using Vanessa's name, using her father's trust as collateral. "He's getting arrested," Grace said when I called her. "Maybe this week, maybe next. But it's happening. Does Vanessa know?" "I don't think so." I closed my eyes. My daughter's husband was a criminal. Her friends were gone. Her money was gone. And I was sitting on millions, watching it all burn, because I was too hurt to reach out. "What do I do?" I whispered. Grace was quiet for a long time. "That's not a question I can answer," she finally said. I sat in my apartment that night, staring at my phone. I could call her, text her, show up at wherever she was staying and tell her everything. Or I could wait for her to come to me. Wait for her to realize that the woman she'd been ashamed of was the only person who'd never left. My finger hovered over her name. 1 tap. That's all it would take. But then I remembered. The door closing. The look in her eyes. "You'll never reach my level." I put the phone down. "Come find me, Vanessa," I whispered to the empty room. "When you're ready, come find me." Outside, the city hummed. And somewhere, my daughter was learning what it meant to fall. 6 months. That's how long it took for her to find me. I'd started to think she never would. That she'd disappear into whatever life came next, too proud to ask for help, too ashamed to come home. But then I heard the knock. It was a Sunday. Late afternoon. I was in my garden, the one behind my new brownstone, the one I'd bought 3 months earlier because I'd always wanted a place to grow tomatoes like my husband used to. The soil was dark and rich under my fingernails. The sun was warm on my shoulders. For the first time in 6 months, I felt something close to peace. Then the knock came. 3 soft taps. Hesitant, almost apologetic. I froze. my hands still in the dirt. I knew. Somehow, I knew. I wiped my hands on my jeans, old ones, paint-stained, the kind I used to wear when Vanessa was little and we'd spend Saturdays cleaning the apartment together. I walked through the house slowly, gave myself time to breathe. The knock came again. "Coming," I called. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. I opened the door, and there she was. Vanessa, my daughter. She looked different. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, no blowout, no salon. Her face was bare, no makeup. I could see the dark circles under her eyes, the thinness in her cheeks. She wore a coat I recognized, an old one, from college, maybe earlier. It was 2 seasons out of date. The hem was frayed. "Mom," she said. Just that. Just Mom. And her voice cracked on the word like it was a question she didn't know how to ask. I didn't say anything. Couldn't. I just stood there, looking at her, taking in every detail. The way she held herself, small, folded inward, like she was trying to take up less space in the world. The way her hands twisted together, nervous, scared. The way her eyes looked at me with something I hadn't seen in years. Need. She stopped, swallowed, tried again. I didn't know where else to go. Behind her, on the street, I could see Derek's car. That stupid leased BMW he'd been so proud of. He was in the driver's seat, loading boxes into the back. The U-Haul was gone, repossessed, probably. This was all they had left. "Can I?" Vanessa's voice wavered. "Can I come in?" I should have made her wait. Should have made her stand there, the way she'd made me stand in that marble foyer with my grocery store cake. Should have made her feel what it's like to be on the wrong side of a door. But I didn't. I stepped aside. "Come in," I said quietly. She walked past me, and I caught the smell of her. Not perfume she used to drown herself in that expensive stuff, the kind that came in heavy glass bottles with French names. Now she just smelled like laundry detergent, cheap soap. She smelled like me. I led her to the kitchen, filled the kettle, pulled out 2 mugs. The good ones. The ones I'd bought for myself when I decided I was allowed to have nice things now. "Your house is beautiful," Vanessa said softly. She was looking around like she couldn't believe it. The marble countertops, the Viking stove, the windows that let in so much light it felt like being underwater. "Thank you," I said. I didn't explain, didn't tell her about the money. Not yet. I just made tea. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. The same way we used to years ago when she'd come home from school and tell me about her day. Before she got too cool for me. Before I became an embarrassment. Steam rose between us. Neither of us drank. "Derek and I separated," she said finally. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." Her voice was flat. He did things. Bad things. I didn't know until it was too late. I wanted to tell her I knew. That I'd known for months. That I'd watched it all happen and done nothing. But I didn't. "Are you okay?" I asked instead. She laughed. It was a broken sound. No, I'm not okay." She looked up at me, and her eyes were wet. "I lost everything, Mom. The apartment, my friends, my whole life." "You didn't lose everything." "Yes, I did." "You didn't lose me." She stared at me. And then she started crying. Not pretty crying. Not the kind you can hide or control. Ugly, heaving sobs that shook her whole body. I got up, walked around the table, put my arms around her. She buried her face in my shoulder the same way she used to when she was 7 and had a nightmare. "I'm sorry," she choked out. "I'm so sorry, Mom. The things I said to you, the way I treated you, I was so awful." "Shh, it's okay." "It's not okay. You came to my birthday, and I shut the door in your face, and you were just trying to—" "Vanessa, stop." I pulled back, held her face in my hands. "You made mistakes. So did I." "What mistakes did you make? You were perfect. You were always perfect, and I treated you like—" "I let you fall," I said quietly. She blinked. "What?" I took a breath. Then I got up, walked to the entrance table, and picked up the photograph. The one I'd put there months ago. My husband in his workshop, smiling, grease-stained hands, dreams in his eyes. Next to it, the patent certificate. Framed, matted, impossible to miss. I carried it back to the kitchen and set it in front of Vanessa. She looked down. Her face went white. "Mom, what is this?" "Your father," I said, sitting back down. He wasn't just a factory worker. He was an inventor. He filed patents, manufacturing systems. They've been generating revenue for 20 years. Revenue? Her voice was barely a whisper. $7 million, Vanessa, give or take. Silence. The kind that feels like the air has been sucked out of the room. Vanessa stared at the certificate, then at me, then back at the certificate. You have $7 million? I do. Since when? Since 6 months ago, the day of your birthday party. She stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. You've had this money for 6 months? Her voice was rising. You watched me lose everything and you had $7 million? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you? Because you needed to fall. She stared at me like I'd slapped her. What? You needed to fall, Vanessa. You needed to lose the penthouse and the fake friends and the borrowed life. I stood up too, my voice steady. You needed to understand what matters. I was drowning. I know. I watched. You watched? Her voice cracked. What kind of mother watches her daughter drown? The kind who's tired of being shut out. The kind who showed up to your birthday with a cake and got a door slammed in her face. My voice broke. The kind who needed you to remember where you came from. Tears were streaming down her face. So this is revenge? You let me lose everything to teach me a lesson? No, sweetheart. I walked toward her. I let you lose everything so you could find yourself. She shook her head, backing away. You're just like Derek, playing games, manipulating. I'm nothing like Derek. My voice was hard now. And you want to know why? She stopped. I pulled out the folder, the one I'd been keeping for this moment, the one Mr. Patterson had prepared. I slid it across the table. What is this? She asked. Open it. Her hands shook as she did. I watched her face as she read. The loan she'd taken out 3 years ago, the $200,000 she owed, the debt Derek had hidden from her, the trust fund he'd drained. And at the bottom, stamped in red, forgiven, paid in full, dated yesterday. She looked up at me, eyes wide. You paid this? I forgave it. There's a difference. I don't understand. You borrowed money from your father's estate. You owed me $200,000. I forgave the debt. I sat back down, suddenly exhausted. Because that's what family does, Vanessa. We forgive. She collapsed into her chair, the folder clutched in her hands. I didn't know, she whispered. I didn't know about any of this. Derek told me it was a business loan. He said. I know what he said, and I know what he did. I reached across the table, took her hand. That's why I'm going to help you, but not by giving you money, by teaching you how to build something real. I don't deserve your help. No, I agreed. You don't. But I'm your mother, and it's time you learned the difference between what you earn and what you're given. We sat there, holding hands across the table. The tea had gone cold. Outside, I could hear Derek's car door slam. Then my phone rang. Mr. Patterson. I answered. Mrs. Chen, he said, and his voice was urgent. Derek just did something you need to know about. He tried to forge documents to claim your husband's estate. We have evidence. The police are involved. I looked at Vanessa. Her eyes were on me, wide and trusting, the way they used to be when she was small. Thank you, I said to the lawyer. I'll handle it. I hung up. Vanessa was still watching me. Mom? What is it? I took a breath. Derek just made a very big mistake, I said, and you're going to have to decide what kind of person you want to be when everything falls apart. I made more tea. Not because we needed it, because I needed something to do with my hands while I told my daughter that her husband was a criminal. Vanessa sat frozen at the table, her face pale, waiting. Derek tried to claim your father's estate, I said, setting the mug in front of her. He forged documents, tried to access the patents, the accounts, everything. When? This morning, apparently. I sat down. My lawyer caught it. He has evidence. The police are involved. She didn't cry this time. She just stared at her tea, watching the steam rise. I should have known, she said finally. There were signs, so many signs. I didn't want to see them. What signs? The money. It was always weird. He'd tell me we were doing great, and then suddenly we couldn't pay for things. He'd get angry when I asked questions. She wrapped her hands around the mug. And the gambling. I knew about that. He swore he stopped, but he didn't stop. No. Her voice was hollow. He never stopped. I reached into the folder, the one I'd been building for months, and pulled out more papers. Bank statements, casino receipts, credit card bills, all the evidence Grace had gathered. He drained your trust fund, I said gently. The one your father set up for you, $150,000. It's gone. Vanessa's head snapped up. What trust fund? Your father wanted you to have something for the future, something secure. He set it up when you were born. I slid the original documents toward her. Derek found a way to access it. He's been draining it for 2 years. She read the papers. I watched her face cycle through everything. Shock, denial, rage, grief. He stole from my father? Her voice was shaking. My dead father? Yes. How much is left? Nothing. It's gone. She stood up, the chair screeching. I'm going to kill him. Vanessa. No, Mom, I'm serious. I'm going to go out there right now, and what? I stood too, blocking her path. Scream at him? Hit him? What will that change? It'll make me feel better. For 5 seconds. And then what? She deflated, sinking back into her chair. Then nothing, she whispered. Then I'm still broke, still homeless, still married to a thief. I knelt beside her chair, took her hands. Listen to me. Derek is going to face consequences. Legal ones. Real ones. But you need to decide who you're going to be when that happens. What do you mean? Are you going to stand by him? Defend him? Or are you going to save yourself? She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. I don't know how to save myself. Yes, you do. You just forgot. I squeezed her hands. You came here, didn't you? You knocked on my door. That was the first step. I didn't know where else to go. That's the point. When everything else falls away, you come home. That's what home is. She cried then. Really cried. And I held her, this grown woman who used to be my little girl, and let her break apart in my kitchen. Outside, I heard Derek's car start, then drive away. He didn't knock, didn't come looking for her. He just left. When Vanessa finally stopped crying, she pulled back, wiping her face. What do I do now? She asked. Now, I said, standing up and refilling her tea. We make a plan. I spread papers across the table. I own properties, I said, buildings, businesses. I've been investing the money your father left me, building something. You own buildings? 4 of them, including a restaurant you used to like, Celestial. Her eyes widened. You own Celestial? I do, and I need a manager. Mom, I don't know anything about running a restaurant. So learn. I'll pay you a real salary. You'll work real hours, and you'll earn your way back. I looked at her. No handouts, no shortcuts. You want your life back? You build it, one shift at a time. She stared at me. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a chance. Why? Because you're my daughter, and because you showed up. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I don't deserve this. You're right, you don't. But I'm giving it to you anyway. I poured myself more tea. That's what grace is, Vanessa. Giving someone something they don't deserve because you love them enough to see who they could be. Her lip trembled. I was so awful to you. Yes, you were. I shut you out. I was ashamed of you. I know. And you're still helping me? I set down my mug and looked her in the eyes. You're my daughter. I'd walk through fire for you, even when you're being an idiot. She laughed a wet, broken sound and reached across the table. I took her hand. I'm sorry, Mom. For all of it. I know, sweetheart. I know. We sat there, holding hands, while the kitchen filled with afternoon light. And for the first time in 6 months, I felt something loosen in my chest. Something that had been knotted tight since the day she shut the door. So, I said after a while, are you going to take the job? She nodded, wiping her eyes. Yes, yeah, I'll take it. Good, you start Monday. Monday? She blinked. That's in 2 days. I know. Better get some rest. I smiled. It's going to be a long shift. She laughed again, a real one this time. And I thought, maybe we'll be okay. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Mrs. Chen? A woman's voice, official, cold. This is Detective Sarah Park with the NYPD. I'm calling about Derek Winters. I understand he's married to your daughter? My heart dropped. Yes. What's happened? He's been arrested. Fraud, forgery, attempted theft. We need your daughter to come in for questioning. I looked at Vanessa. She was watching me, fear creeping back into her eyes. When? I asked. As soon as possible. Tonight, if she can. She'll be there. I hung up. Mom? Vanessa's voice was small. What is it? I set the phone down. Derek's been arrested. They need you to go to the station, answer questions. Oh my God. It's okay. I'll come with you. What if they think I was involved? What if… You weren't, and we'll prove it. I stood up, grabbing my purse. Come on, let's go deal with this. She stood, trembling. Mom? Yeah? Thank you. For everything. I pulled her into a hug. That's what mothers do, I said into her hair. We show up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. She squeezed me tight, and then we walked out the door together, into whatever came next. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and desperation. We sat in a room with fluorescent lights and a table bolted to the floor. A detective, the same woman who'd called Detective Park, sat across from us with a folder thick enough to be a novel. Thank you for coming in, Miss Winters, she said. It's Chen, Vanessa said quietly. I'm going back to Chen. The detective made a note. Miss Chen, then. I need to ask you some questions about your husband's financial activities. For 2 hours they grilled her. About Derek's business, about the loans, about the trust fund. Vanessa answered every question, her voice steady, her hands folded on the table. I sat beside her, silent, watching. Watching my daughter face the consequences of a life she'd built on lies. Did you know your husband was accessing your father's estate? Detective Park asked. No. Did you sign any documents related to these accounts? No. I didn't even know they existed. Your husband forged your signature on multiple occasions. Were you aware? No. Vanessa's voice cracked. I trusted him. Detective Park leaned back, studying her. Miss Chen, I'm going to be straight with you. Your husband is facing serious charges, wire fraud, forgery, identity theft. He's looking at 5 to 10 years. Vanessa went pale. But we don't believe you were involved, the detective continued. However, we need you to cooperate fully. If he contacts you… He won't, Vanessa said. If he does, you need to let us know immediately. I will. Detective Park slid a business card across the table. We may have more questions as the investigation continues. Don't leave the state. I won't. And Miss Chen? The detective's voice softened slightly. I'm sorry. I know this isn't easy. Vanessa just nodded. We walked out into the night. The city was alive with noise and light, people going about their lives, oblivious to the fact that mine had just imploded. Vanessa stopped on the sidewalk, staring at nothing. I married a criminal, she said. You didn't know. I should have known. The signs were all there. Stop. I turned her to face me. You can spend the rest of your life beating yourself up, or you can move forward. Your choice. She looked at me, her eyes red. How do I move forward from this? One step at a time, one day at a time. I don't even know where to start. You start by coming home with me. You sleep. And tomorrow, you figure out the next thing. What's the next thing? Divorce papers, I said. And then we get you your life back. We drove back to my house in silence. When we pulled up, Vanessa stared at the brownstone like she was seeing it for the first time. You really own this? She asked. I really do. And you bought it with Dad's money? I bought it with money your father earned by being brilliant. Yes. She was quiet for a moment. I wish I'd known him better, she said softly. I was so young when he died. I barely remember him. He was a good man. He loved you more than anything. He would have been so disappointed in me. No. I took her hand. He would have been disappointed in your choices, but never in you. There's a difference. We went inside. I made up the guest room, the one I'd been secretly hoping she'd use someday, even though I'd never admitted it to myself. Clean sheets, extra blankets, a lamp on the nightstand. Get some sleep, I said. We'll talk more in the morning. Mom? I turned. Why are you being so nice to me? After everything? I smiled, tired. Because you're my daughter, and because I spent 6 months being angry, and I'm tired of it. I don't know how to make this up to you. You don't have to make it up to me. You just have to do better. She nodded, eyes wet again. Good night, Mom. Good night, sweetheart. I closed the door and stood in the hallway for a long moment. Then I went to my room and cried. Not sad tears, not angry tears. Just relief. My daughter was home. Broken, humiliated, starting over from nothing. But home. 3 days later, Vanessa moved into an apartment I owned 3 blocks away. Small, 1 bedroom, nothing fancy. But it was hers. She paid rent, actual rent, at market rate from the salary I paid her at the restaurant. She worked 6 days a week, long shifts, hard work. And slowly, she started to change. The first week, she complained about everything. The hours, the customers, the grease smell in her hair. The second week, she was quieter. The third week, she started asking questions. How do you manage inventory? What's the profit margin on the brunch menu? Can I see the books? I taught her everything. Not because I wanted her to take over, I had managers for that. But because she needed to understand what it meant to build something from the ground up. One Sunday, 6 weeks after she'd knocked on my door, she brought a cake to our weekly dinner. Grocery store. Vanilla with pink roses. She set it on my table, and we both stared at it. I'm sorry, Mom, she said, her voice thick. For all of it. I know, sweetheart. Do you forgive me? I looked at her, really looked at her. The designer clothes were gone. She wore jeans and a sweater from Target. Her hair was simple, her face bare. She looked more like herself than she had in years. I forgave you the second you knocked on my door, I said. I was just waiting for you to forgive yourself. We ate cake straight from the container. With our fingers. Like we used to. And for the first time in years, my daughter laughed a real laugh, unguarded and true. I finally get it, Mom, she said, licking frosting off her thumb. You were never below my level. I was never at a level at all. I was just standing on a ladder that wasn't mine. I squeezed her hand. Welcome home, sweetheart. Derek called her 2 weeks later. I was at Vanessa's apartment. Our Sunday dinner had moved to her place since she'd wanted to cook for me for the first time in a decade when her phone lit up on the counter. Derek. Mobile. We both stared at it. Don't answer, I said. I have to, the detective said. Let it go to voicemail, then we'll call Detective Park. The phone stopped ringing. 10 seconds later, it started again. Vanessa picked it up this time, hands shaking. What? Her voice was cold. I could hear him through the speaker. Loud. Desperate. Vanessa, baby, please, I need you to listen to me. I'm not your baby. What do you want? I need you to talk to your mother. She has money, lots of it. If she'd just post bail, I could. You want my mother to bail you out? Vanessa's voice was ice. After you stole from her? From my father? I didn't steal. It was a misunderstanding. The lawyers got it wrong. If you'd just explained to her. No. Silence. What? I said no, Derek. I'm not helping you. I'm not talking to my mother for you. I'm done. His voice changed, became sharp. You're done? You're done? After everything I gave you? That penthouse? That life? You were nobody before me, Vanessa? Nobody. You're right, she said quietly. I was nobody, just like my mother. And you know what? I'd rather be nobody than be you. She hung up. The phone rang again immediately. She declined it. Then she blocked his number, her jaw set, her hands steady. I need to call Detective Park, she said. I'm proud of you, I said. She looked up, surprised. Really? Really. While Vanessa talked to the detective in the other room, I stood at her kitchen window, looking out at the street. This apartment wasn't fancy. The view was a brick wall and a fire escape. But it was hers, paid for with her own work. And she'd just chosen herself over a man who'd almost destroyed her. That was growth. That was strength. She came back 10 minutes later, pale but composed. They're adding harassment to his charges, she said. He's been calling from jail. The detective said he's trying to manipulate me into helping him. Are you okay? Yeah. She nodded, more to herself than to me. Yeah, I think I am. We ate dinner spaghetti, nothing fancy, but she'd made the sauce from scratch. This is good, I said. YouTube tutorial. She smiled. I'm learning. I can tell. We ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then, Vanessa set down her fork. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. When you were watching me fall, did you ever think about just telling me? About the money? About Dad? I set down my own fork, considering. Every day, I admitted. Every single day, I thought about calling you, stopping it. Why didn't you? Because you wouldn't have believed me. Or worse, you would have, and you would have resented me for it. I don't understand. If I'd swooped in and saved you, you would have learned nothing. You would have thought money solves everything, that having a safety net means you never have to change. I reached across and took her hand. You needed to hit bottom, sweetheart. You needed to understand what matters. And what matters? People, real relationships, self-respect. I squeezed her hand. Money is a tool. It gives you options, but it can't buy you character. That, you have to build yourself. She was quiet for a long moment. I hated you, she said softly. When I found out about the money, that you'd watched me struggle, I hated you for about 5 minutes. Only 5 minutes? Then I remembered the door, the birthday party, the cake. She looked down, and I realized you were right. I needed to fall. We cleaned up together, washing dishes side by side like we used to. And for the first time in years, I felt like I had my daughter back. Not the woman in designer clothes who was ashamed of where she came from, but the girl who used to help me fold laundry and tell me about her dreams. Later that night, after I'd gone home, my phone rang. Mr. Patterson, my lawyer. Mrs. Chen, I have news. What is it? Derek's trying to make a deal. He's offering testimony against his business partners. Turns out there was fraud at multiple levels in exchange for a reduced sentence. How reduced? 2 to 3 years, possibly. With good behavior, he could be out in 18 months. My stomach turned. And Vanessa? He's claiming she knew, that she was complicit. I nearly dropped the phone. That's a lie. I know. We have documentation proving otherwise. But he's desperate. He'll say anything to reduce his sentence. What do? We fight. We have evidence that Vanessa had no knowledge of his activities, bank records, testimonies, the detective's report. He paused. But I need to prepare you. This is going to get ugly. I called Vanessa immediately. Don't panic, I said when she answered. When someone starts with don't panic, I panic. What's wrong? I told her everything. There was a long silence. He's trying to blame me? Her voice was small. To save himself? Yes. But I didn't know. I didn't do anything. I know, sweetheart. And we're going to prove it. Another silence. Then, I'm scared, Mom. I know. But you're not alone this time. 2 days later. We sat in Mr. Patterson's office, me, Vanessa, and a criminal defense attorney named Julia Chen, no relation, who looked like she could eat glass and smile. They have no case, Julia said, spreading documents across the desk. Zero evidence of your involvement. Derek's testimony is the word of a proven liar against documented proof of your innocence. So I'm okay? Vanessa asked. You're fine. But we need to be proactive. Julia slid a paper toward her. I want you to file for divorce. Immediately. Complete separation of assets, restraining order, the works. Vanessa stared at the paper. Her marriage, reduced to legal documents. Okay, she said quietly. Let's do it. She signed. I watched her hand move across the page, steady, certain, and felt something settle in my chest. This was it. The final cut. The last tie to the life that almost destroyed her. Afterward, we walked through the city. No destination, just walking. How do you feel? I asked. Lighter, she said. Is that weird? Not at all. I thought I'd be sad, but I'm just relieved. That's how you know it's the right choice. We stopped at a coffee shop, a tiny place, nothing fancy, and sat by the window. Vanessa stared into her cup. I've been thinking, she said, about what happens next. And? I want to go back to school. Accounting, maybe. Or business management. She looked up. I want to understand what you do, how you built all this. I want to learn. My throat tightened. I think that's a wonderful idea. Will you help me? Every step of the way. She smiled, a real smile, the kind I hadn't seen in years. Thank you, Mom, for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on myself. I'm your mother. Giving up isn't in the job description. We sat there as the afternoon light turned gold, and I thought about the journey we'd been on. The money, the betrayal, the fall and the slow, painful climb back up. It wasn't over yet. Derek's trial was still coming. There would be more pain, more revelations, but we'd face it together. And that made all the difference. My phone buzzed. A text from Grace, my financial advisor. One of your buildings just got an offer. Well above asking. Interested? I looked at Vanessa, bent over her coffee, peaceful for the first time in months. I typed back. Not yet. I'm building something more important right now. Grace replied immediately. What's that? I glanced at my daughter and smiled. A legacy. The morning of Vanessa's graduation, I woke up to the smell of coffee. Not the instant kind I used to make. Real coffee. The good stuff. I shuffled into the kitchen and found her standing at my stove, making pancakes. You're up early, I said. Big day. She grinned over her shoulder. Figured I'd make breakfast. Sit down. I sat at my kitchen table, the same one where we'd had so many hard conversations, and watched my daughter cook. She'd moved back in with me 3 months ago. Not because she had to. Her apartment was fine. But because she wanted to. I missed you, she'd said when she asked. And I have so much time to make up for. So she'd moved into the guest room, and slowly, my house had come alive again. She set a plate in front of me. Pancakes with fresh berries, real maple syrup. Fancy, I said. It's a celebration. She sat across from me with her own plate. I'm graduating from community college. That deserves good pancakes. It deserves more than that. We ate together, the morning sun streaming through the windows. Are you nervous? I asked. About the ceremony? No. About what comes next. She paused. A little. What comes next is up to you. I know. She pushed berries around her plate. I've been thinking. About the job. At the restaurant. And? I love it. I want to keep doing it. Maybe even expand, open another location eventually. I smiled. I think that's a great idea. But I want to do it right. Partner with you. Not just work for you. Partners? If you'll have me. I reached across the table and took her hand. I'd be honored. Her eyes welled up. Mom, I know I don't say it enough, But thank you. For everything. For the job. For the second chance. For not giving up on me even when I gave you every reason to. You're my daughter. You don't give up on family. The graduation ceremony was small. Community college, not the fancy university she'd attended the first time. But when they called her name, Vanessa Chen, associate's degree in business management, I stood up and cheered louder than anyone. She crossed the stage in her cap and gown, clutching her diploma, and when she looked into the crowd and found me, her smile was brighter than the sun. Afterward, we took photos in the courtyard. Just the two of us. No fancy friends, no husband. Just a mother and daughter who'd found their way back to each other. You know what's funny? Vanessa said, looking at the photos on my phone. What? A year ago, I would have been embarrassed to post these. Community college, no designer dress, no filter that makes everything look perfect. And now? She took my phone and opened Instagram, the account she'd barely used in months. She posted the photo. The two of us, grinning, her in her plain cap and gown, me in my cardigan from Target. Caption. Started from the bottom, now we're here. Graduated today with my best friend and biggest supporter. Thanks for never giving up on me, Mom. Within minutes, the comments started rolling in. But not from Claudia or Simone or any of her old friends. From her classmates, her co-workers, people who'd gotten to know the real Vanessa, not the performance. Congrats, V, you earned this. So proud of you, you're going to do amazing things. Your mom looks so happy. This is beautiful. Vanessa read them, tears in her eyes. These are real friends, she said softly. Aren't they? Yes, sweetheart, they are. That evening, we had dinner at her apartment. Not mine. Hers. She'd insisted on cooking pasta carbonara, which she'd perfected over months of practice. This is incredible, I said, twirling noodles on my fork. I'm getting good, right? She looked pleased. You're getting great. After dinner, she brought out a grocery store cake. Vanilla. Pink roses. Just like the one I'd brought to her birthday a year ago. She set it on the table between us. I need to tell you something, she said. Okay. I've been saving money from my salary, and I've been working with Grace, your financial advisor, learning how to invest. That's wonderful. And I want to pay you back. I blinked. Pay me back for what? The loan. The $200,000. I know you forgave it, but I want to pay it back anyway. She pulled out a notebook, flipped it open. I've done the math. If I save X amount per month and my investments do what Grace predicts, I can pay you back in 5 years. My throat tightened. Vanessa, you don't have to. I know I don't have to, but I want to. She looked at me, her eyes serious. You gave me Grace when I didn't deserve it, but I don't want to live off Grace forever. I want to earn my way. I want to stand on my own. I reached across and touched her face. You already are, sweetheart. You already are. We cut the cake and ate it with our fingers, laughing, talking about her plans for the restaurant. She wanted to expand the menu, add a weekend brunch series, maybe start a catering business. I have ideas, she said, eyes bright. So many ideas. Then we'll make them happen. Together. Later, as I was getting ready to leave, Vanessa hugged me at the door. I love you, Mom, she said. I don't think I said that enough before. I love you too, and you say it plenty now. Good, because I mean it. I drove home through the city, the lights blurring past. When I got to my brownstone, I stood in the garden for a moment, looking at the tomato plants. They were thriving, heavy with fruit, just like my husband used to grow. She's going to be okay, I whispered to the night. Our girl, she's going to be okay. The garden didn't answer, but I felt it, a warmth, a presence. Robert, watching over us, proud of what we'd built. Inside, I walked to the mantel. 2 photographs sat there now. One of Robert in his workshop, smiling, covered in grease and dreams. And one new addition, Vanessa on her graduation day, cap and gown, holding her diploma. Not the fancy university degree from years ago. This one, the one she'd earned herself. I traced my finger over both frames. Some levels you climb, I said softly. Some you build, and some you realize were never real in the first place. The house was quiet, but it wasn't empty. It was full of memories, of hope, of second chances. Full of the knowledge that family isn't about where you've been. It's about where you're going. Together. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. Thank you for dinner, and for everything. Love you, Mom. I typed back. Love you too, sweetheart. So proud of you. Sleep well. Tomorrow we start building your empire. She replied immediately. Our empire. I smiled, set down my phone, and looked around my home. The one I'd built from my husband's dreams and my own determination. The one my daughter was finally ready to help me build into something even bigger. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, I made myself tea and sat in my favorite chair. And for the first time in a very long time, everything felt right. My daughter was home. Not the broken, desperate woman who'd knocked on my door a year ago, but a woman who'd fallen, learned, and risen stronger. A woman who understood that reaching the top meant nothing if you climbed alone. I thought about that birthday party, the marble foyer, the grocery store cake, the door closing in my face. You'll never reach my level, Mom. I smiled into my tea. You were right, sweetheart, I whispered. I never reached your level. I paused. I built something better,